Hey, I have a really interesting topic to talk about today, and I'm not sure why I haven't really spoken about it yet because it was kind of lumps into the whole situation for me with, I guess, mental illness and taking time and balance with things. And there's some really interesting things around this topic, which is healing. And healing can be mental, can be physical, can be emotional. You can heal from relationships, injuries, like I said, illness. And it's the reason it's really, really interesting is because when it comes to the physical aspects of it, it's so much more tied in with the emotional side of it than you could possibly think. And this is the interesting part of it. And it's something that I've read about before in the past, obviously in my own healing journey, and even, when I got sick before I even started healing. And then also with other physical injuries I've had in the past. And it's something that's probably a little bit out there, a little bit woo-woo, but like I said, I'm a very objective person about lots of things. I'm very spiritual. I'm very analytical and very science-based at the same time. Like I said, I have balance on all things and all perspectives, and have an objective opinion about lots of things. But when I'm talking about healing and some of the interesting aspects of it, is your metaphysical state. So how your body's injuries or illnesses are connected to an emotional connection of some type. And I'll use a couple of examples, using myself as an example. And like I said, it's one of those things, there's a little bit out there, you can believe it or not believe it or whatever you want. But if you look into it, it's actually really quite interesting what sort of stuff shows up when you look into it. So I encourage you to do so if you're trying to heal from something, whether it be physically or emotionally, and figure out what the physical and emotional connection is with your body and what that exact thing is that you're trying to heal. So, for example, if you look up what the metaphysical meaning of lymphoma is in somebody, it's tied to a lot of really negative emotions. And those are like, self-confidence, trust, terror, threat. There's a few different ones in there. I don't have a list in front of me, but if you were to like write them all down and speak them all out in a list, when I look at that, there's a lot of things in there that I connect with emotionally from issues and that I've had growing up, just personally, but also to do with other people and family members that I found so interesting. And one of the things is when I went through that whole journey and when the whole thing finished, there was a part of me that was like what most people would be like, and it's a question I get asked a lot is that will your cancer come back? And it's a question that I ask myself a lot. It's a lot of people ask me. They go, "Oh, you in the clear. You in the clear now, remission. Like, what does that mean? What's the chances of coming back and this and that?" And you always get given a percentage chance. But for whatever reason, and I might be completely wrong, touch wood, I'm not. But for whatever reason, when I got to the end of my treatment journey, there was a massive part of me, other than a few little anxieties here and there, which would pop up, but a massive part of me was like, this is the first and only time I'm going through this, and it's for a major, particular reason. And for some reason, deep down, physically and emotionally, I felt that I'm not going to have to go through this again. And if I did, it would be a very long time down the track when I'm really old. And I feel like I got thrown something like that really hard to learn a life lesson of some type. And the funny thing is when I talk to my coach that I use, my mindset and emotional coach that I have, we discuss this because she's the person that brought up the metaphysical meaning for me thing, which is a thing I hadn't thought about for a long time. And she's the one that read out all these emotions and these connections that I had to the physical illness that I had, which really blew my mind. So when I said to her, that makes a lot of sense to me, she replied to me, you're never going to get sick again, right? And she's a very in touch, in tune, spiritual person, knows a lot of stuff. And she may be right, she may be wrong as well. But I replied to her immediately, yeah, I know. And she goes, how do you know? I said, I just had that feeling that I got thrown this illness for a particular reason because I had to learn a massive lesson in life. And whether that was my own lesson or whether I had to go through that to teach other people lessons in life, who really knows? But I feel like I had to do something great with it. I had to get something great out of it. And whether that's as minuscule as just being a better person and being a better family member, and whether it's as massive as helping a wider audience of people that go through stuff they need to be healed from or have trauma from, I felt that I had to learn a massive lesson out of it. And I feel like I did. And my life has honestly improved exponentially since I went through that whole situation. And I think you'll find a lot of people that go through physical, emotional, or traumas, and whether the illnesses or what they are, and they get through the other side of them, they say that's the best thing that ever happened to me, which sounds weird because when you go to death's door and you have such a major mental and emotional impact on yourself and your family, and they go through so much, and it's so upsetting and so disappointing, but you get through it. There's got to be a reason you get through it, and it teaches a lot of people a lesson. And like I said, if you speak to a lot of people who've been through major stuff like that, they're going to tell you it's the best thing that ever happened to them. And I honestly believe it is. Like, in recent months, it's probably the happiest I've ever been in my life. A lot of that is from just practicing gratefulness, really. Gratefulness, being grateful that I'm alive, grateful that I have what I have, grateful that I have my family. Whereas previous to that, I was probably always constantly living in the future. And this ties into the healing aspect as well, which I'll come back around to. But, living in the present moment and being grateful for what I have, because when you go through a period of time where you are faced with the fact that you might not have it forever, or you might not have your health, and you might not have your family, nothing else really matters. And when you get through the other side of it, you're like, wow, I've never been more appreciative of the fact that I'm just alive and I'm just experiencing life. Even if it's mundane stuff like cleaning the house, I'm grateful the fact that I can clean the house. Courtney will probably argue otherwise because I hate cleaning. I like cooking more, but it's beside the fact that, there's frustrating nuances in life that get flipped on their head when you go through such a traumatic and emotional experience, and it's honestly really good. And like I said, I've had motivational butterflies in my stomach like I've never had before, and you can see that in my fitness and my drive and my jiu-jitsu and all those things. You ask those people that surround me, I'm pushing like I've never pushed before because I'm grateful the fact that that I have the ability to be there and push. Now, getting back to the metaphysical aspects of injury and illness, another thing, like you've noticed in the last couple of videos, I hurt my shoulder. So I've got the sling off now. I'm in that recovery rehab phase of fixing up my AC joint. And when I'd heard it, speaking to my coach, she came back and said to me, do you know what the metaphysical meaning of hurting your left shoulder is? And it's carrying a female energy and a female burden. And I know exactly who that is. Is a very close person in my life, a family member that's going through a lot of stuff right now, and I'm carrying too much of their weight. And it could be absolute BS, but it could also be completely true. The fact that I've had this injury due to my emotional connection to this person that I have to let go of and focus on myself. Now, coming back to what I was talking about, being grateful and not looking too far into the future for things maybe you have or you don't have, and how that relates to healing. So if there's one little gem that I've given this on a couple podcasts before that I've done, about, if someone asked me what's the one thing that you took away from your traumatic experience that you could pass on to somebody else that might maybe really help them in their healing journey, and to me it was to have no expectations. And to have no expectations really means to live in the present moment, because living in the present moment makes you realize where you are right now, what you're doing, what you're grateful for, and what you have. If you spend your time healing in the future, it's really, really good to have vision and goals. I'm not saying that. B, it's more about the aspect of someone gives you a timeline, and this happens a lot, and whether it's a doctor, a psychologist, an oncologist, or a coach, or whoever it is that says to you, typically in this situation, you should be healed in 6 weeks' time. I'll give you a perfect example. So when I started out my treatment journey, they said, hey, the type of cancer that you've got, this is a process of 4 cycles of this chemotherapy. It will take 6 months and you will be done in July 2020. I think it was 2020. No, July 2019. So that's when Teddy was born. So in my head, when I went through this whole process, and they threw in things like, you're young, you're fit, you're healthy, people of this age will recover this quickly. And this didn't just come down to the treatment, it came down to the stem cell treatment I did at the end, which wasn't initially on the card. So it's like, you fall into this category of you being in this age bracket that everybody else is in, so your time to heal should be this, and you should be fine after this date. And it never works out that way. Long story short, my treatment got extended. They added on the stem cell transplant on the end of it, which added another month or 2 to my treatment. My stem cell transplant was supposed to be only 4 weeks in hospital. I ended up in hospital for a period of over a couple of months, including ICU. And then my recovery process, they said, you could recover at your age, your recovery process would be a year to 18 months. I got to a year and 18 months out and I was still really not well. Wasn't really healed, wasn't really where I wanted to be. And they go, maybe you'll be another 18 months. So it was just constant hanging on expectation of what people said to me that I was going to be like and how I would feel, and my energy would be back and this and that, my immune system would be here or there or blah 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 blah. And when it comes to healing, you have to take time and patience and listen to your body, because everybody is different, and that's including emotional traumas, physical traumas, whatever it is. So, same with the shoulder. They're like, 6 to 8 weeks, you'll be back on your feet and this and that. And I go, okay. So immediately I just put out my day-to-day in my head, where I'm like, I'm just going to get through today, going to see how it feels tomorrow. I'm just going to get through tomorrow, see how it feels then. Rather than being like, I'm going to be back at jiu-jitsu in 6 weeks' time, rolling as hard as I was 6 weeks ago. It's just not going to happen with everybody. So if there's 2 things I want you to take out of this, would be really explore your physical and emotional connection in your body with the metaphysical side of it. And I'm not sure, you probably just Google it, like metaphysical illness or metaphysical disease or metaphysical injury, for example, and that will link an emotional connection to what's happening to you. And it might not match up. You might think it's BS. That doesn't really matter. But the overall arching point that I want to get across is the healing side of it, and that is taking every day as it comes and not having too much expectation. We put a lot of our time, effort, energy, and happiness onto the people that we think are going to fix us, right? So an external person, whether that be a family member says this, a friend says that, a doctor says this, a doctor says that, and we take on that information as gospel. But a lot of the times we don't listen to ourselves, we don't listen to what our body says and what our body feels, and we don't look at the overall picture. Rather than looking in the future and being like, I'm going to be like this on this date, look and go, in 2-3 years' time, this whole process wouldn't have mattered. It doesn't matter if it takes me 6 weeks or 12 weeks to heal from this injury or this breakup or whatever I have to do to heal emotionally, but I will know that in 12 months I will be fine, and I will have forgotten about this, I will have worked through this, and I will be just as grateful on those days as the time comes as if I am right now, rather than being like, oh, it's never coming, I'm never getting better, I'm never healing, it's not getting better, it's not doing this, it's not doing that, because you can't put too much expectation on what other people say. A healing journey is very much a personal journey, and I encourage you to do everything you can to heal in your personal journey, day by day, with gratefulness, taking your time, looking at the bigger picture, and it's a higher life perspective. Like I've said before in other videos, it's you remove yourself from your life, you take yourself up and look at your life as if it was a chessboard and say, okay, for the next 3-4 weeks, this chess piece ain't moving for this particular reason. But in 3-4 weeks' time, once it starts moving again, this is all just going to be a moment in time and it's going to be finished. And I'm going to be exactly where I need to be. I'm going to trust the universe. I'm going to trust the body. And I'm just going to be grateful for every moment that I get to spend along that journey, and don't rush too far in the future. Another perfect example with that and how it relates is to kids and your parenting. this is probably a bit longer video than what I'm going to usually do, but I think it's really important to relate this with parenting as well. It's about, you know, you can't wait till your kid gets to a certain age, or you can't wait till they grow up to a certain point, or you can't wait till it's easier for them to do this because they can help you with that. They can put their own pants on, they can wipe their own bum, or whatever it is. But if you are interested in all listening to some snippets of some really amazing psychologists like Jordan Peterson, listen to Jordan Peterson, what he says about parenting. You get a baby for 4 years. Like after 4, they start to become a child, and not too long before you know it, they'll be a teenager. You won't be able to pick them up again, cuddle them again how you used to cuddling them. They won't be a baby anymore. So also take time to be grateful in the moments that you have and experience the moments that you have as a parent, because if you try and rush it too much, like rush your kid to daycare and rush them to get them to daycare for 5 days a week because they're a pain in the ass, or rush till they get to school, can't wait till they're in school because they're going to do whatever I want during the day, you're never, ever, ever, ever going to get that time back. And even in your healing situations that, you know, they might be hard at the time, but when something's hard and you get through it, whether it's an injury or whatever it is, a relationship, something that has caused a little bit of trauma, you need to also relish that time as much as you can, because there's going to be another point in your life, you have ups and downs, and there's another point in your life where you're going to be like, what did I do in that hard situation? And this is what I'm talking about, people who go through really bad traumatic things and they've end up being really grateful for them, because I get to situations in my life now that are hard. I'm like, it ain't that hard. I've been through some harder shit. And you gotta think back on what you did in those situations. And every time you come up to a new problem, and if you don't have the confidence and you think, I don't think I can solve this problem, this is a little bit too hard, I don't think I can learn this, I don't think I can move forward. Your life has been full of moments where you haven't known stuff, from a baby right up into a teenager into an adult. You've always had to learn something to get through your next stage of life. So there's breadcrumbs along the way that you've already chewed up and spat out of hard situations you've been in, and situations that you've learnt things and improved on things, and you need to call back on those. So when you have something that's a major trauma, there's moments in that too where you go, well, this is what I did to pull through that situation, so I can do it here. And I just think it's really, really important to remember those things, stay in the moment, and especially when it comes to parenting, like I said, really be in the moment with that as well, because that time just flies by. And you know, there's healing processes from being a parent where you think that you haven't done the right thing that you need to fix in the future, and you'll, you know, with your second child, you do it better all over again, for example. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there instead of rambling on. I hope this has been of some help to somebody in some type of healing situation. Everybody heals on a daily basis, whether it's from, you know, an offensive conversation they had, to being told off by somebody, or making a mistake, or making a failure. There's all little things that we have to improve on and heal on every single day. And I think it's really, really important, especially if it's a physical thing you need to heal from, is finding out what the emotional connection is to it, and just taking it day by day, not having too many expectations on yourself, and you will get to the end result. Have that higher life management. Like I said, look at your life like it's a chessboard. Figure out how you can do things and fix things, and what things you've called on in the past to move forward in the future. And when you remove yourself like that, the stress of having expectations of, I should be better now, I should be this by now, this should be better by now, this should be done, just know that at the end of the day, that chess game's going to finish, and you're going to be where you need to be.